This is the fourth video explaining Rustum and Sohrab, page number 102. Who is this? What is his name? Asked the king. So the king had sent his army to defend his country from Sohrab, from the invasion of Sohrab. So Sohrab was the commander of the Tatar army who had attacked Persia, and king had sent his army to defend it. And they were defeated by Sohrab, and some of them had returned. Some of them had fled the battlefield to save their lives. And when they arrived to the king asked, "Who is this general? Who is this fighter? Who is this warrior?" So the men replied that his name is Sohrab, and he is very brave and he is very mighty. And if anyone could defeat him, if anyone can defeat him, it's Rustum. Just then a Tatar soldier came with a message. It was from Sohrab. The message said, "I shall spare the Persian army if your champion will fight me in a single combat." And in the meantime, a soldier of Sohrab came with a message. And the message was from Sohrab to the king. And the message read that, and the message said that if the best soldier, if the bravest and the best soldier and the best warrior among the Persian army will fight with me in a single combat, I will spare the Persian army. "Send for Rustum at once," said the king. So the king set his men to the Rustum immediately to call him. When he heard the message, when Rustum heard the message, Rustum was at that time away in a far-off village, staying with his father. At that time, when the king's call came to Rustum, he was in a far-off village. He was in a far village with his father. When the king's message reached him, he took leave of his father and hurried to see the king. And when the king's message came to him, he left immediately. The king said to him, "A great danger threatens our country. The Tatars have invaded this country. The enemy is inside our borders." The king explained the situation to the Rustum, that what had happened. The Tatars have attacked our country and we are in danger. "Who is so rash and thoughtless that he thinks he can attack Persia?" asked the Rustum. And Rustum said, "Who is so rash and thoughtless? Who is so thoughtless? Who is so furious that he thinks he can attack Persia?" asked Rustum. The generals say he is a beardless youth. And the king said to him, "The generals say that he is a beardless youth." This means beardless youth. This means he is very young. And he is very young. Almost, this means he must have been in his 20s, 21, 22, 23. Because his beard hasn't grown yet. He fights with remarkable courage and daring. And he fights with remarkable courage. He is very brave and courageous. And he fights fearlessly. His name is Sohrab. They say his ambition is to fight you and defeat you. And the generals say that he wants to fight with you in a single combat and defeat you. He has sent word asking us to choose a champion from among us to meet him in a single combat. And the king explained the Sohrab's message to the Rustum, in which he had asked the king to choose a best man among you to fight with him in a single combat. "You are our champion and savior. Will you go and fight?" So king said to Rustum that you are our champion, you are our savior, you have saved our country many times, you are the shield of Persia. So will you fight this young man? "But I am old, your majesty." "But I am old," the Rustum replied. "But I am old, your majesty." With respect, he replied to the king humbly, "And I have an aged father to look after, and I have to look after my old father. Couldn't you find a younger man to fight this youth? Why Why instead you don't find a young man to fight this youth? Asked Rustum. So Rustum asked the king humbly, if I had been able to find a younger champion, I would have not called you away from your aged father. And if the king replied to Rustum that if I had been able to find a young man, I wouldn't call you. Unless you fight this youth, we have no hope of saving our country. If you don't fight this youth, then we are done. Then no one can save us. Then we have no hope. What a misfortune for Persia that she should be forced to turn to an old man to defend her, said Rustum. So Rustum said, you know, an exclamatory sentence, a sentence of a little bit sadness, that he said, Persia, what a misfortune for Persia. It's a misfortune for Persia that she had been forced to a young man to save it. She had been forced to, she is requesting an older man to defend him, said Rustum. But if I must go, I will go to the battle as a plain soldier wearing plain armor. But if it's done that I have to go, now if there is no other option, but then if I must go, I will go as a plain soldier. I will not go as a commander. I will not go as the commander of Persian army, but I will go as a plain soldier. Let no one know that old Rustum had to be called to fight a beardless boy. Now, no one should know that old and experienced and such a brave, such a mighty Rustum had to be called. The king had called the Rustum to fight a beardless boy.